I want to tell you about a bet. Not a friendly bet. Not the kind of bet that families make when they believe in someone and are expressing that belief through the specific, playful language of stakes and odds. The other kind. The kind that is not really about the outcome but about the person. About what the person betting believes about you. About the specific, quiet contempt that gets dressed up as realism and offered to you as concern. My family made that bet at Thanksgiving when I was 17 years old. Sitting around the table in my grandmother's house in Memphis, Tennessee, with the specific warmth of a family gathering that feels good from the outside and is considerably more complicated from the inside. My uncle Raymond started it. He said, "So Victoria tells us she is applying to West Point." The table went quiet in the specific way that tables go quiet when someone has said something that everyone has an opinion about and nobody has decided yet whether to say it. Then my uncle continued. "I give her 6 months," he said. 6 months before she is back in Memphis. Laughter. Not everyone. But enough. My Aunt Patricia said, "Raymond, be nice." Raymond said, "I am being realistic. West Point is not for everyone. It is one of the hardest institutions in the country. Victoria is a good girl but..." He looked at me. "No offense, sweetheart. But I am not sure you understand what you are getting into." I was 17 years old. I looked at my Uncle Raymond across my grandmother's Thanksgiving table. I said, "I understand exactly what I am getting into." He smiled. The smile of someone who believes they are being indulged. "I will make you a deal," I said. "If I graduate, not just graduate at the top of my class, you have to stand up in front of this entire family and admit you were wrong." The table was completely quiet. Raymond looked at me. Then he said, "Deal." He was not worried about the deal. He was certain he was never going to have to pay it. What happened over the next 4 years, what I endured and built and became at the United States Military Academy at West Point, and what happened on a Saturday morning in May in front of 4,000 people including my entire family in the audience, is the story I want to tell you today. But I cannot start at West Point. I have to start earlier. If you are new here, please subscribe right now and drop your country and local time in the comments. I read every single one. Now let me take you all the way back. My name is Second Lieutenant Victoria Hayes. United States Army. I am 22 years old and I am the most recently commissioned officer in this story and possibly the youngest person who has ever had a story worth telling on this channel. But I have a story worth telling. And I want to tell it while it is still close enough to feel the specific weight of every part of it. I grew up in Memphis, Tennessee. The eldest of 3 children. My father was a postal worker. My mother was a school librarian. We were not a military family, there was no family tradition of service, no father or grandfather who had worn a uniform, no specific cultural gravity pulling me toward that path. What I had instead was a library. My mother's library specifically, the school library where she worked and where I spent every afternoon from the age of 7 until the age of 14 reading everything I could reach. History. Biography. Military history in particular, the specific, narrative quality of military history drew me in a way that other subjects did not. The stories of people who had been tested at the outer limits of what human beings are capable of and who had found, in those tests, something essential about themselves. I wanted to be tested. Not in a reckless sense. Not the adolescent fantasy of adventure without consequence. The specific, considered wanting of someone who has read enough to understand that the people who are shaped most completely are the ones who have been in environments that demanded everything from them. I wanted an environment that demanded everything. West Point demanded everything. I found out about West Point at 14 from a book about its history that I pulled from my mother's library shelves. I read it in 2 days. Then I read everything else about it I could find. By 16 I had decided. By 17 I had told my family. And Raymond had made his bet. I want to tell you about my family before I tell you about West Point. Not to condemn them, By the time this story ends you will understand why I am not interested in condemning them. But to show you the specific shape of the world I was coming from, because the shape of the world you come from is part of what you carry when you walk through a gate that is trying to break you. My uncle Raymond was the patriarch of the extended family in the way of oldest uncles in Southern families, the one whose opinion sets the tone, whose approval matters most, whose pronouncements at the family table carry a weight that the other voices do not. He was not a bad man. He was a man who had built a comfortable life in Memphis through steady, practical effort and who believed, with the specific conviction of someone who has never left the world he grew up in, that he understood the limits of what people like us were capable of. People like us. I heard that phrase from Raymond more than once in my childhood. Not in a defeated way, he was not a defeated man. In the specific, practical way of someone who has made peace with limits and believes that making peace with limits is wisdom. The limits he had made peace with did not include West Point. He was not alone in this. My grandmother, who loved me completely and whose love I have never questioned, asked me quietly in the kitchen on that same Thanksgiving whether I was sure about this. Whether I had thought about what it would mean to leave Memphis. Whether I had spoken to anyone who actually knew what West Point was like from the inside. I told her I had read everything available. She said reading about something was not the same as knowing it. She was right. But she was wrong about what that meant for my decision. My parents were supportive in the specific, slightly anxious way of parents who want to believe in their child and are also afraid of watching their child fail at something enormous. My father said he was proud of me. My mother cried. Both of them said they would support me in whatever I decided, and both of them were quietly hoping I might decide on a state university with a good scholarship program. I decided on West Point. I applied. I was accepted on a Tuesday in March. I called my mother first. Then my father. Then I called my grandmother. She was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "Well, I suppose Raymond is going to owe you something. I want to tell you about West Point. Not all of it. For years of the most demanding academic and military institution in the country cannot be compressed into a story without losing most of what made it what it was. But the specific parts that matter to the shape of what I am telling you. Beast Barracks first. Beast Barracks is what West Point calls its cadet basic training, the 6 weeks at the beginning of plebe year that are designed, with considerable intentionality, to find the limit of what you believe about yourself and then push you past it. I want to be honest about Beast Barracks. I was not prepared for it. I had read everything. I had trained physically for 2 years. I had prepared in every way I knew how to prepare. I was not prepared for the specific experience of it. For the way it strips away everything you have been using to understand yourself, your achievements, your identity, your relationships, the specific architecture of who you believed you were before you walked through that gate, and leaves you with only what you actually are underneath all of it. What I actually was underneath all of it was someone who did not quit. I found this out in the 3rd week of Beast when I was more exhausted than I had ever been in my life and more disoriented and more genuinely uncertain about whether I had made a mistake, and I did not quit. Not because quitting was not available. It was available. The option to walk away from West Point is always available. Nobody is held there against their will. I did not exercise the option. Not because I was certain I could finish. Because I was not willing to find out what I was by quitting. I finished Beast. I started the academic year. Plebe year, the first year at West Point, is its own specific kind of difficult that is different from Beast in the specific way that sustained difficulty is different from acute difficulty. Beast is a sprint that feels like it will never end. Plebe year is a marathon that you run while also carrying everything else: a full academic load and military training and the specific social position of a plebe, the lowest rank in the academy's hierarchy, requires. I struggled. I want to say that clearly because I think the honest version of this story is more useful than the version where everything was difficult, but I handled it perfectly. I struggled in the first semester of plebe year in ways that were not visible to anyone because I was very good at not letting the struggling be visible, and because the specific pride of someone who has been told by their family that they will fail makes visible struggling feel like something to be avoided at any cost. I handled the struggling alone. I also discovered, in the handling of it, something specific about myself that I had not known before. I was better under pressure than I was without it. Not immediately, the first contact with pressure was always the hardest. But sustained pressure produced something in me. A specific clarity. A narrowing of focus that removed everything that was not essential and left only the work and the will to do the work. I had been right about what demanding environments do. They had done it to me. By the second semester of plebe year I was not struggling. By sophomore year I was not struggling and I was excelling. By junior year I was excelling and I understood something about the specific shape of my own excellence, that it was not the flashy, visible kind that announces itself. It was the steady kind. The kind that accumulates quietly and that you only fully see when you step back far enough to look at the whole trajectory. Senior year. Senior year is when the trajectory became undeniable. I want to tell you about senior year specifically because senior year is where the story turns into what I promised you at the beginning. I was the brigade commander in the fall semester. The brigade commander at West Point is the highest-ranking cadet position in the Corps, the cadet who commands the entire cadet brigade. It is selected by the Academy's leadership based on the accumulated record of 4 years and on the specific qualities that the Academy believes the position requires. They selected me. I want to tell you what that meant in the context of this story. The brigade commander position had been held, in the history of West Point, by a specific kind of person. The history is long and the diversity of that position has expanded significantly over the decades, and I am not going to make a claim about being the first of anything because first claims require research I have not done and specificity I am not certain of. What I will tell you is that when the selection was announced and my family was notified, as families are notified of significant Academy honors, my uncle Raymond called my mother. She told me about the call later. He had asked what brigade commander meant. She had explained it. He had been quiet for a long time. Then he said, "Well." Just that. Well. My mother said it was the most he had ever been at a loss for words in her entire experience of knowing him. The graduation ceremony at West Point is held on the Plain, the large ceremonial ground at the Academy that has been the site of military formations and ceremonies for over 200 years. It is a large, formal, specific event attended by thousands, graduates and their families, military dignitaries, government officials, and the specific community of people who gather to watch young officers receive their commissions. 4,000 people approximately on the day I graduated. My family had come from Memphis. All of them. My mother and father. My grandmother. My brother and sister. Uncle Raymond and Aunt Patricia and their children. Various cousins and family friends who had heard about the graduation and had decided, for various reasons, to be there. They were in the audience. I knew they were in the audience. I had arranged their tickets. I had coordinated their hotel accommodations. I had sent them the specific information about the ceremony and where to be and what to expect. I had also arranged something else. I had spoken to the Academy's protocol office 6 weeks before graduation. I had made a request. The request was granted. The graduation ceremony proceeds in a specific order. The processional. The opening remarks. The remarks from the Secretary of the Army and the Chief of Staff. The address from the graduation speaker, a general officer whose address I will not characterize in detail because characterizing it would identify the specific year of graduation in ways I prefer to leave ambiguous. And then the valedictorian address. The valedictorian at West Point is selected on the basis of the academic record, the highest accumulated grade point average in the graduating class across the 4 years of the program. I had the highest accumulated grade point average in my graduating class. I was the valedictorian. I want to tell you about walking to the podium. 4,000 people. The plain. The morning sun. The specific, formal atmosphere of a ceremony that has been held on this ground for over 200 years. I walked to the podium in my dress uniform. Full dress. Every decoration. Every honor I had accumulated in 4 years. I looked at the audience. I found my family. It did not take long. My grandmother was in the front row of the family section wearing the hat she wore to church on important Sundays. My mother was beside her. My father beside my mother. Uncle Raymond was behind them. I found his face in the crowd. He was looking at me. At the podium. At the uniform. At the specific, assembled evidence of 4 years that he had bet 6 months on. I held his gaze for a moment. Then I turned to the microphone. I am not going to give you the full text of my address. Not because it is not available, it is in the public record of the Academy. But because the parts of it that matter to this story are specific and I can tell you those parts without reproducing the whole. I spoke about preparation. About the specific quality of a West Point education that is not simply academic or simply military but is both simultaneously, the demand to be excellent in the classroom and on the training ground at the same time, without the luxury of excusing weakness in one domain because of strength in the other. I spoke about the people I had served with. My classmates. The specific, irreplaceable thing that happens when people are tested together at the limit of what they can do and come through the other side still standing. And then I said something that I had added to the address specifically for this occasion. I said, I want to say something to the families in the audience today. To the parents and siblings and grandparents and uncles and aunts and cousins who came here from wherever they came from to watch someone they love receive a commission. I looked at my family. Some of you believed from the beginning. Some of you had doubts. Some of you, and I say this with love and without anger, were not sure this was possible. A pause. It was possible. It happened. And I want you to know something about the doubt. Another pause. The doubt was not an obstacle. The doubt was fuel. The specific, particular fuel of someone who has something to prove, not to you, not for your benefit, but for themselves. The proof that they knew themselves better than the doubt knew them. I looked at Raymond. He was looking at me. I knew myself better than the doubt knew me, I said. And I am standing here today as the evidence. The applause started. I looked at my grandmother. She was crying. The good kind. After the ceremony. After the commissionings and the cap tosses and the specific, joyful chaos that follows a West Point graduation, after all of that, my family found me on the plane. My grandmother first. She held me for a long time without saying anything. Then she stepped back and looked at my uniform and she said, I should not have asked you in the kitchen if you were sure. I said, you were being a grandmother. That was right. She said, I should have known better. I said, you know now. She smiled. My parents. My mother cried again. My father shook my hand and then pulled me into a hug that he held longer than I expected him to. Then Raymond. He came to me last. The rest of the family had given him space in the specific way that people give space to someone who has something that needs to be said. He stood in front of me. He was a large man. Physically large. The specific, slightly reduced quality of someone who has been holding something for 4 years that they did not expect to have to hold. He looked at my uniform. At the decorations. At the rank insignia. At the valedictorian designation on my program that someone had given him during the ceremony. He looked at my face. Then he said, I owe you something. I said, you do. I said 6 months, he said. I said you would be back in Memphis in 6 months. Yes, I said. I was wrong, he said. Yes, I said. I am standing here, he said, in front of this entire family, he gestured at the relatives gathered at a careful distance, to tell you that I was wrong. That I did not know what you were capable of. That I made a bet against you and you won it so completely that I do not have words for the size of being wrong. The family was very quiet. "I am sorry," he said. "Not just for the bet. For the specific quality of the doubt. For telling a 17-year-old girl that she did not understand what she was getting into when she was the only one at that table who did." I looked at my uncle. At the man who had laughed at my grandmother's Thanksgiving table 4 years ago. At the man who had set the specific fuel of doubt that had burned for 4 years inside a girl who was determined to prove she knew herself better than the doubt knew her. "Raymond," I said, "I want you to know something." He waited. "The bet helped me," I said. "I am not saying this to be gracious. I am saying it because it is true. Carrying that bet, carrying what it meant about what you believed about me, that fuel was real. It contributed to what I built here. I would not want to take it back even if I could." He looked at me for a long time. Then he said, "That might be the most West Point thing I have ever heard anyone say." I laughed. "The real kind." He laughed too. And then he hugged me. The real kind. For the first time in my life, my Uncle Raymond hugged me the way someone hugs a person they are genuinely proud of. It felt exactly like what it was. I am commissioned now. 2nd Lieutenant Victoria Hayes, United States Army. I leave for my first duty station in 6 weeks. Fort Campbell, Kentucky. The 101st Airborne Division. The specific, proud unit that I requested and that I received, and that will be the beginning of what comes next. I do not know what comes next in the way of details. The Army has a way of managing the details of its officers' careers that allows for very little certainty about the specific shape of the future. What I know is this. I am prepared. For years of the most demanding institution in this country prepared me. The academics, the military training, the specific pressure of being tested simultaneously in every dimension of what a person can be, all of it prepared me for what comes next in a way that I could not have found anywhere else. And Raymond's bet prepared me. In the specific, alchemical way that doubt prepares people who are built to convert it. I carry all of it. The preparation and the doubt and the grandmother who asked me in the kitchen if I was sure and the mother who cried at the acceptance letter and the father who shook my hand and the uncle who finally stood on the plane at West Point in front of the whole family and said I was wrong. I carry all of it. Into whatever comes next. Before you go, I want to say something to anyone who has been told what they are not capable of by someone who is supposed to know them. By a family member. By a teacher. By someone whose opinion has weight because of who they are to you. I want to tell you what I told my class on the plane. The doubt is not an obstacle. The doubt is fuel. The specific, particular fuel of someone who has something to prove, not to the person who doubted them, not for that person's benefit, but for themselves. The proof that you know yourself better than the doubt knows you. You know yourself better. Build the evidence. Then let them watch. Drop the word plane in the comments if this story reached something real in you. Plane for the ceremonial ground at West Point. Plane for the plain, simple truth that you know yourself better than the doubt knows you. And if you are new here, subscribe. Every single day I share a new story about family, about service, about the people who were doubted and became the evidence that the doubt was wrong. I will see you in the next one. Kayla's Dark Truth.